and welcome. This is Talk to SSBC, where we discuss cross-cutting issues. My name is Duku Wilson and welcome to this episode. Today we are in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation to discuss the current national, regional and international affairs with Honorable Dr. James Pitia Morganl, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. Welcome to this episode. Welcome, Honorable Dr. James Pitia, to Talk to SSBC.
Thank you very much, Wilson Duku.
Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thank you and welcome SSBC.
You're welcome. Dr. James Pitia Morganl, you have been away for a foreign mission, I think for some time, maybe years. You are known maybe outside the country, but citizens in South Sudan probably maybe do not know you, and some of them might be wondering and asking the question, who is Dr. James Pitia Morganl? What would you tell them?
Exactly, and thank you very much for asking that question, because it is one of the issues that my name even is not being called correctly here at home. Some people call me James Pitia, some people call me different names. And that is exactly that many people, they do not know me well, especially after we came back following the signing of the CPA. But basically, I am from this city, Juba. My childhood, I was here in Juba. I went to Bullock Primary School here in Juba, which later on was changed to be Bullock Bullock Junior Secondary School. And then from Bullock Junior Secondary School, the changing of the system happened in our time. So we went to junior secondary school without exams because we were the people who were supposed to be going for exams. So since the system changed on us, we were given the green light to go to junior secondary school without exams. And then from Bullock Junior Secondary School, I went to high school, the secondary school in Juba Commercial, Juba Commercial Secondary School. Just we crossed the river from Bullock to Juba Commercial.
Yes.
And that is where I finished my secondary school. And then that was the time also when the War of Liberation was almost about to start. So that is where many people might not know me. Even at home, where I come from, many people, they don't know me. Basically, I come from Kajukeji.
Okay.
That is in my hometown. My location in Kajukeji also is almost, many people don't know which part of Kajukeji I come from. I come from northern Kajukeji, which is bordering the southern Bari. And I did not live there also well. That was because of the previous wars that happened in this country. I was taken to Uganda as a minor. I started my real primary school in Uganda. And we were brought back as refugees, children or minors, unaccompanied minors. So we were brought back, and that is why I was able to be in Bullock Primary School. Basically, I started my primary school in Uganda. So during the War of Liberation, because at that time I already finished Juba Commercial, the first work I started was outside Juba also. There was a project in Yei called PDU. PDU means Project Development Unit. It was a project that was run by the government of the United Kingdom. And that was where I started my work. I was started as a bookkeeper, of course, Juba Commercial trains accountants.
Okay.
So I was there until the time the war broke out. So when the war broke out, we didn't even work longer because at the time I finished the school was the year I started work, and then in '83, the year of liberation, the war broke out. So then from here we moved here to Juba. I also work as an internal auditor in the Ministry of Finance of the then regional government. But our intentions, as the war was going on, our intentions was to join the movement. We were not happy to be here and working where there were a lot of agitations, and that made us. I was accepted to Khartoum, National Institute for Accounting Studies, and in that institute I was supposed to be trained as an internal auditor. In 1990, I finished that training. We were issued diplomas in accounting with the aim of becoming the internal auditors, or the auditors even to join the National Audit Chamber. But I was not satisfied. I made my way out of the country. We went to Kenya. In Kenya, we were intending to leave to the liberated areas to be trained. Kapweta at that time was already captured, so our target was to go to Kapweta so that we are trained. But our office of the office of the SPLM in Nairobi didn't have means of transporting us to Kapweta. At that time, when we were waiting, somebody told us the war is not all about fighting with guns. There are opportunities that you can go out for resettlement, and you can pursue the war in another form. So that was when we also found a way, an opportunity to go to the United States of America.
Okay. Which year was that?
And the year was 1993.
Okay.
So in the United States of America, we decided, after our late chairman, Dr. John, told us that we can form chapters to sensitize the world about the situation back home. So we formed the SPLM chapter, which became the most strongest chapter in the United States. And it was in Midwest where I was based. And that chapter worked very hard, in fact, to mobilize the South Sudanese as well as our friends, the Americans and the American politicians like senators, congressmen, and so on. In 1993, we carried out a very successful demonstrations in New York. We laid Manute Bol. That was the first time the Americans had to see the real South Sudanese. They were surprised. Who are these people and where do they come from? And the height of late Manute. He was the tallest person. And the Americans were interested. Who are these people? Exactly, that was when our case in the US became so known in that demonstrations, which we demonstrated in front of the UN. Our friends, the Jewish community, joined us, and that was very successful. So all this is why many people may not know me, but in the diaspora, I am well known, especially our diaspora community. They know me very well. We work very hard. Late Dr. John called us the Seventh Front. We helped in the peace process. We helped the Sudan Peace Act to be signed, passed from the Congress to the Senate. And that was the key to the peace talks in Naivasha. That was our work in the diaspora. And now when I remember the person who told me that the war is not all about guns, I came to realize that what we did outside there was helpful also for the movement.
That's very excellent. Being a diplomat, when did you start?
Well, after that, when the CPA was about to be initial, and the last visit of Dr. John to US in 2004, Dr. John came, he visited many places in US, including Arizona, where most of the Lost Boys were there. So Stephen Wandu, who was the head of all the representatives of the SPLM in the diaspora, in the US, Dr. John was to come to Midwest. So Stephen Wandu told me that, James, the chairman is coming to your area. So I'm going to come with him, but this is your responsibility to organize these meetings of the chairperson with the community and all your members of the chapter. So it was in Iowa that when we received Dr. John, that was in 2004. We received Dr. John we organized, there was an Equatorian community meeting that Dr. John was invited to address. So in that meeting, Dr. John was called to go back to Washington, D.C. because the senators had wanted to see him. We were expecting him to spend the night in Iowa. But when that call came, and I was taking Dr. John to the airport, Dr. John asked me that, James, what are you doing now? I told him, Chairman, we just returned back from Canada. Our work here is to sensitize our community, and we're also following up the process in the PC talks in Nairobi. And he said, what about in education? I told him I just completed my master's in the business administration, and I'm intending to join my PhD program. He said, no, that will be done after when you're working. Now, the PC process, we have reached the level that the PC process now is irreversible. You need to come home.
Yeah.
You come so that you follow the PC process from there, and then you inform your members of the diaspora from there.
Yeah.
In fact, I took that advice, then I came to Nairobi. After Dr. John left with his delegation, that is when I came to Nairobi.
Okay.
And the initialing of the peace process in 2004, December 31st, for Nasi Naivasha, and then the signing of the agreement on the 9th of January 2005, we attended it. After that, late Dr. John had wanted me to be part of the South-South dialogue. But I said, no, let me first of all go to US, and then from there I will come back, because my ticket was already changed. I left it for US that night.
Okay.
But when I got home, I opened my email, and then I found that I was called to attend the diplomatic training in Holland.
Okay.
So that was the beginning.
That was the beginning
of my diplomatic career.
That was which year?
2005.
2005.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Now you are back home as
Yes.
a Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. What is the impression? How do you feel about that?
Well, it is an opportunity to serve my country, and also an opportunity to serve my people and their leadership. When His Excellency the President gave me this responsibility to serve this country on this docket, I was happy that this is a privilege given to me to serve this country, and I received that responsibility given to me, of course, with all the might that I should do something for this country. And this is an opportunity that the President has given me to serve this country. I have to serve this country with all that I have, whether in my physical form or in the knowledge that I have. I will make sure that I utilize it. I utilize what I have for this country.
That's very great.
Yes.
Now you have been here for about a month or so.
Yes.
When you arrived, how did you find the ministry?
The ministry, of course, was established, and I was a part and parcel of establishing this ministry.
Yeah.
Because in my career, as I started, I worked with His Excellency, the President of the Republic, the time when he was the first Vice President of Sudan, in his office as a speechwriter. That was when we came. I started working with him. And after I worked with him, we were called by the Minister of Foreign Affairs that the SPLM cadres who were trained as diplomats are required to be sent to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Khartoum. So I was called. But the President said, even if I was called to go to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I should be seconded back to his office to continue my work as a speechwriter, but as a diplomat also. So that was when also I was working with him, but I was already appointed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Khartoum as a diplomat. So from there, after the referendum, I came back from referendum because in Khartoum I was deployed as a deputy head of mission to Indonesia, Jakarta, Indonesia. I worked there as a diplomat, deputy head of mission of Sudan ambassador to Jakarta, Indonesia. So after the referendum, of course, we have to come back home.
Yes.
I also, President also offered me to continue working in his office while we were setting up our Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Yeah.
We set up this Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 2012. Also because this ministry was the Ministry of Regional Cooperation during the interim period of 6 years.
Yeah.
So now we came back home as diplomats from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and our diplomats who were already working here in the regional cooperation. And the capacity of the Ministry of Regional Cooperation was a liaison office. It was not a diplomatic office because we were not independent yet. So now we have to launch the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as a diplomatic institution for the country, with many of South Sudanese who were working in Sudan government as a diplomats. All of them were yes. So we worked together to set up this ministry. So during that time, until the time now I come in as a Minister of Foreign Affairs,
Yes.
I'm number 7 Minister of Foreign Affairs since from the time of our independence. I'm now the Minister of Foreign Affairs, number 7 in the list.
Yeah.
My colleagues who had been here before me, they have done what they also were able to do. Each and every one of us who had been given this opportunity by our president to serve this country in this docket have done what they have done.
Yeah.
But of course we are doing this work in individual level.
Yeah.
Whatever legacy one has left, that legacy will belong to that person. I am here as James Pitia Morganl. I will also do my best to leave the legacy that I want to leave in this ministry.
From the 7 ministers that served the ministry, and based on your experience
Yes.
outside as an ambassador,
Yes.
what do you think the 6 years?
The 6 ministers,
What do you think they have not done right, and how would your leadership, as being now the 7th minister, what are you going to do differently?
well, that is not the question that I'm the one to answer.
Yeah.
I will only answer mine.
Okay.
Each and every minister will answer what he has done. I will answer mine later on. When you will interview me after I finish my assignment
Okay.
given to me by the president,
Okay.
because I cannot say now what I've done and what others have done. It will be the public to judge what each and every one of us have done.
Yeah.
I will do my part, and then after that, you will interview me if God keeps us all
Together.
at this
So,
period.
what are you bringing in?
What I'm bringing in
Yes.
is what I know. I know that, first of all, I want to thank our president, General Salva Kiir Mayardit. He gave me time, enough time, to be outside to serve in different capacities. You know, after we were recalled by Bashir's government, after the results of the referendum, Bashir immediately said the South Sudanese diplomats must leave the embassies. So I have to leave Indonesia, I have to come to Khartoum. From Khartoum we came here, we set up the ministry. The first assignment which was given to me as a diplomat of South Sudan was going to India to set up the South Sudan embassy in New Delhi. And the setting up of the embassy in New Delhi was one of the most successful embassy ever. Even it was appreciated by many people. I did it in the way that, because I was already a diplomat, and I set up the embassy in the right way. And up to today, I have a record in India, where the Indians, most of the time, if you go to India today, and you happen to meet the Indian communities, they will ask you, where is Ambassador James Morganl? And why was he taken away from here? Because he was doing a good work.
Good job.
So that was my first credit, that because it is not me to appreciate myself.
Yes.
some of my colleagues up to today call back and say, what did you do here? Everybody's asking about you. So that was one of the first mission I did. From India, I didn't last because I set up the mission, and then the head of mission was appointed. I became his deputy. I worked only with him for 2 years, and then I was recalled. Then I was sent to Nairobi, also as a deputy. And I worked in Nairobi. It was at the time where the country was going through difficulties, the 2013 crisis, and then I was now in Nairobi from 2014 up to 2016. I was a deputy, and there were a lot of problems, but I stood also my ground to make sure that the image of this country and its leadership was protected, because during the war of our own, so many things that many people used to say, I was there to fight for those things. And I think that I did my part in that area.
That's great.
The record is there.
That's
Everybody
great.
will find it out.
The President, His Excellency Salva Kiir, has given you a mandate or has given you that authority to reform the ministry.
Yes.
What plans do you have now to reform the ministry?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was very grateful when His Excellency the President called me from Addis Ababa, because from Nairobi I went to Addis Ababa, and I was given so many responsibilities in Addis Ababa. I was the ambassador of the Republic of South Sudan to the two countries, Ethiopia and Djibouti. And in multilateral, I was also a representative, a permanent representative of the Republic of South Sudan to African Union. I was also a permanent representative of South Sudan to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. And then I was also a member of the Committee of Ambassadors of the Republic of South Sudan to IGAD. So imagine that all these five folders that I had been holding for 7.5 years before I was called to this position. I feel comfortable that I was given enough training, and that is why I always say I really want to thank our president, because he prepared me. He prepared me. I was prepared in these areas with enough knowledge, and this knowledge I cannot utilize it anywhere else except in this ministry.
That's right.
When the president gave me an opportunity to serve this country in this ministry, I've taken this position with the strength, because I have that capability to serve this country in this ministry.
Yeah.
The plans that I have is to structure the ministry. As I said, that the ministry it started as a ministry of regional cooperation. There are structures that were missing. These structures will be in place during my time. These structures will come into place.
Okay.
Another thing that I will do as a minister of this ministry is to make sure that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of South Sudan will fit its mandate as a Minister of Foreign Affairs elsewhere in the world. It will be the Minister of Foreign Affairs like other ministries of foreign affairs, in terms of its capabilities, in terms of its abilities, and in terms of its effectiveness. These three things are very important. Ministry of Foreign Affairs doesn't close. It is like a police station, because here we have emergencies. For example, we can have a certain president somewhere else is traveling but flying over our airspace. The heads of states, whenever they fly over your airspace, or any aircraft that flies over our airspace, that aircraft, we need its details, and we give it to our technical people in the security sector, with the diplomats in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to make sure that this aircraft is cleared by our people on the ground here. Because the airspace belongs to us, and there is a limit of the airspace where it becomes an international airspace and where the airspace belongs to us. This is where we have to make sure that the ministry will work 24 hours to make sure that this airspace and the requirements that are of emergency nature are met timely.
Yes.
That is one.
24 hours.
24 hours is service.
Service.
Yeah, which the ministry is going to be.
That's excellent.
That is one thing that we want to do now. Number two, the Minister of Foreign Affairs is the image of South Sudan as a whole.
Yes.
South Sudan's mirror is this ministry,
Yeah.
where outside we are seen through the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Yeah.
In our airport, in our ports entering to us, the Minister of Foreign Affairs must be representative. When a foreigner comes, the Minister of Foreign Affairs always, the diplomats must be there, not doing anything but to leave our security organs to do their work. But the diplomats must be there. In case of any inquiry which involves diplomacy, that inquiry must be answered timely and effectively. In case of anything, our diplomat in the airport will inform the headquarters, the office here, whether it is night. It is up to now, up to now that our airport doesn't operate at night. But time will come when this airport also will be 24 hours.
Correct.
So the ministry, that is why I say that the ministry also will be 24 hours. Anything that happens any time, at anywhere in the country, must be responded to. The world is not flat. The world is globe. It is round.
Yes.
When we are sleeping here, other people are working. So those answers, those questions that arise when we are sleeping here in Juba and other people are working somewhere, have to find answers in the ministry. Yes, that is why we will have 24 hours service in this ministry. And in fact, it has started.
Great.
It has started. When I came, the first thing I did was to make sure that this must go into effect. And that is where the effectiveness of the ministry will come in. And also, we have the African continent at the moment, based on the African Union structure. Our ministry also will be structured according to that structure. We have 5 regions here in African continent, or in African Union. We have SADC in South Africa, Southern Africa. We have IGAD in the Eastern Africa. We have ECOWAS in West Africa. We have ECAS in the Central Africa. And we have the Maghreb, or what they call it, the Northern region. So I will structure the ministry according to these regions. Before we go out of Africa into the desks, European desk, American desk, Australian desk, Asian desk, and so on. The ministry will be structured according to these divisions, so that if anything happens, where this 24 hours is service, it will become a situation room, where the diplomats on duty will be able to follow what is happening around the globe.
Correct.
And they responded into those events effectively, so that the leadership of the country is informed timely that something is happening here. The challenge we are facing now is the lack of space in the office, because we don't have enough space. If we were having enough space in this building, these structures would have taken place immediately, and the people would sleep here, what we call ambassador on duty, like what we call in police university. We will do it here. Ambassador on duty is ambassador assigned, given diplomats to work with him at night, to watch the TV, Arabic, English. The Institute of Diplomatic Study here, we will introduce other languages like French and other languages. This will be the time when this ministry will become more effective, like what I said before. And that room will be called situation room, where nothing goes without notice of the country, without the leadership being brought into attention of any event happening anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So these are the plans
That you already have.
we are planning to do it, and with the help of our president, who has already assured me during the time of my swearing in that he is going to support us.
Yeah.
So we will put these plans together. The issue of the space is one of the challenging issues,
Yeah.
but if our president stands again behind us,
And
then who can go against
Things will
us?
move.
We will fulfill this.
now, before we go for a break,
Yes.
this criticism that South Sudan foreign policy is not clear. Maybe when we come back from that break, you will have to elaborate what is the South Sudan foreign policy.
Thank you.
All right. Viewer, we are going for a short break. Please don't go away. We are back in a moment. Hello viewer, welcome back from that short break. We are still in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. James Pitia Morganl, who is talking about the current national, regional and international affairs. Welcome back from that short break and thank you for being with us. Welcome back from that short break, Honorable. We are talking about the South Sudan foreign policy before we went for break. Clearly, just try to give a detailed explanation on the South Sudan foreign policy.
Okay, thank you once again, Duku, for welcoming me back. Yes, first of all, what is the foreign policy? The foreign policy of South Sudan is the way how we are handling ourselves. We came through the liberation process. The liberation process was having objectives, and those objectives were put in a manifesto. That manifesto, where we fought under, can formulate the best foreign policy of this country. The foreign policy is the way how South Sudan should be seen by outsiders. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is like a showroom. If you go to Bibi Ali's showroom, you find very beautiful vehicles. BMW, Mercedes-Benz, V8s. This is a showroom. Yes. They look very beautiful.
Correct.
It is not Bibi Ali who made those vehicles, but is selling those vehicles.
Yeah.
The foreign policy is not being made by the Minister of Foreign Affairs alone. The Minister of Foreign Affairs is like a showroom to sell the image of the country. The image of the country, how the outsiders look this country. To me, to define it in a short way, one, South Sudanese as a people of one nation, one people must show to the world that we are South Sudanese. We are the people of this nation living together in peace and love among ourselves. And here we are with our diversity of different tribes. Diversity is a beauty of a country because that is what shows us as a people, and that is how we show to the others how we interact together as people, how good we are together as people of different ethnicities, how the outsiders look at that beauty of ours. That forms our foreign policy, how others look at us. And it also gives attractiveness. Then our beauty become attractive to others. Because we are peace-loving, we are one people, one nation, under one leader, and that others say, oh, these people are nice, these people live in peace and they are loving, peace-loving people. These are South Sudanese. That is one. With our neighbors, we are also good to our neighbors. To those friends beyond our boundaries, our neighbors, we are also projecting ourselves as good people to them. So that is the work now of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to sell those values. Those values outside world. It is now the work of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to sell them to the outsiders. And then South Sudan becomes attractive to the others. And that attractiveness brings in people who I want to go and invest in that country. That country is very good, people are very good, and I want to be there. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs will be selling the values of South Sudan to outsiders in that form. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is given that job by the lawmakers of this country, by the executive, by the judiciary of this country, that South Sudan is a law-fearing country. South Sudan is a country that is democratic. South Sudan is a country that is peaceful. And then this is where now outsiders are attracted to us, as we also attract them. That is the foreign policy. Number two, we came through the liberation process. The friends of South Sudan who helped the people of South Sudan to achieve what they have achieved now. In our preferences, the foreign policy will tell us, because the foreign policy, when it comes into who are your friends, also it defines it. In the historical struggle of the people of South Sudan, there were also people who stood with us. Our neighbors, our friends in the continent and beyond. We also have to treat those people with the preferences of who they are to us and who we are to them. That is how our foreign policy will work. In the international arena, where we call multilateralism, in the multilateral areas or arenas, we also have friends from other parts of the world. We have conventions that are already developed. These international conventions are already there. We respect them. We work together. If there is a problem affecting South Sudan, we will find people who will support South Sudan. We cannot live in isolation. We are not an island, so we need to live with people. In bilateral and in multilateral. Short, we say, scratch my back, I scratch your back.
So, thank you, Honorable. Based on what you have explained about the foreign policy, if you take, for example, the West and the East, during our struggle, the West, I think, participated so much in terms of supporting the liberation and all the things that happened during that time. Where does South Sudan foreign policy in regards to the situation that maybe the choice of being in the West or choice of being in the East? Where is South Sudan?
Exactly. South Sudan, up to now, has no problem with any side. Because in the first place, South Sudan projected its outside policy as a loving nation. We have no problem with our friends in the West, and we also have no problem for having friends in the East. this is a new nation, and we have shown to everybody in this planet Earth that we will welcome anybody who want to be with us. As a new nation, we need friends.
Yeah.
We cannot be alone.
Yeah.
We need friends, whether from east or from west. And that is why we, at the moment, we don't have problem. And even in the future, this is going to be our foreign policy, to project to any loving person on this earth, friends who want to be with us are welcome. Our friends in the West, up to now, if you can give me a minute to explain it better, our president has reached out to our friends in the West several times.
Yes.
One was when I was a speech writer. We traveled to US with him. He went to invite our friends to come back. In 1970s, Chevron discovered oil in South Sudan. But that discovery was not enough. We believe that South Sudan has not been explored. We need you to come back and make exploration of the country. And we also need you to come back and do a lot of work now that the war is over. But our friends were saying, okay, not this time, we will come. So up to now, that invitation of our president remains open. Anytime they want to come, that remains open for them to come.
Now, based on the engagement, in the look of things, it's like South Sudan is more engaging to the east more than to the west. Well, for example, engagement with China, it is so huge, of which much of the oil exploration is done by China, and it seems like the US might not be happy because they really gave a lot of support during the liberation struggle. How does this impact on the bilateral relations between these countries?
Exactly. South Sudan has not, when we came back in 2005, many contracts were already signed by Sudan and Chinese companies. What we just want to say is that we inherited most of the contracts signed by Sudan government. And the time when we went to the West to request the Western countries to come and do exploration and to work with us, the Westerners advised us to honor the contracts that were signed by Sudan government and the Chinese companies.
They told the government?
They told us to carry out with that. So we don't have problem. And that also from when we came back from that visit, I was option to also travel with the president to China. And the president made it very clear to the Chinese leadership in the Great Hall of People in Beijing that South Sudan is going to go for a referendum. Whatever the outcome of that referendum, whether confirming unity with Sudan or South Sudan will go of its own way, South Sudan is going to continue working with the Chinese companies, and South Sudan will honor those agreements, because that was the view of our friends also in the West.
Yeah.
So the presence of Chinese with us is not a problem to the Western countries, because they told us to continue working with them. And we also have no problem with Chinese companies. We are working with them, and they have been with us. Up to now, the Western countries were invited, but they have not yet come. And that invitation will remain open for them. As you said, they stood with us during our struggle. We have not said that let them not come. They can come. The Chinese are here, they can come. South Sudan is a virgin land, and it is very big. If they can come today, our president has opened the door open for them. I mean,
everybody.
For everybody.
Yeah.
They are welcome to come. Yes.
Recently, you went with the president to Russia.
Yes.
Just briefly explain what was the mission about.
We went to Russia because Russia invited our president. The invitation even came before we went to the UN General Assembly.
Okay.
And that invitation was on bilateral basis. We went to Russia Also the same message that we are here now. The country, if there were problems, these problems have come to an end, and the country is ready for any friend of ours who want to do any exploration in terms of minerals, in terms of oil and gas. And I think up to now, there are some few Russian companies which are here, like in the refinery company, that helping us with the refinery. So the visit to Russia was not something unique. It was the same like any other visit to the West.
During the president's speech,
Yes.
he said that he's looking for strong friends like Vladimir Putin. What did he mean by that statement?
Well, the president did not mean the friend or strong friend in fight. A strong friend who can help us in development. A friend who has a technical know-how in helping us develop our natural resources. Russia is among those friends. You know that the Russians were the first people also in the world who went to the outer space. So they are strong people in technology. So President was referring to that. We are looking for friends who is strong, can help us to get out what is underground, like our minerals or like our oil and gas, so that our people can be making use of it. Because peace is a paper which we sign, but out of this paper we need something that can change the lives of people. The life of a person who is expecting peace, he is expecting his life to change from bad to good, or from good to better, or from better to the best.
Correct.
So that is what the president wanted to say. We need friend who is strong in this area of technology, who has that capability of tapping into areas that remain untapped for the developing of this country.
Yes.
That was the meaning of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The relationship between
Yeah.
Russia and the US is not that clear. It is like there are some hassles that are not going very well. The president now going to Russia, how will this impact on the relationship between South Sudan and the US?
You see, in diplomacy or in multilateral areas, we have an interest. Our interest is no different with the interest of the Americans and the interest of the Russians. We are not going to be against the interest of anybody. What the interest of South Sudan, the interest of South Sudan is its people. If the government and President Salva Kiir Mayardit can change the life of South Sudanese, that is our interest. We have no problem of whoever they have problems. Their problems cannot be our problems. Our problem is our own problem, and that problem that we have is how the people of South Sudan, with a very huge expectation after the liberation process is now over, what the people of South Sudan are expecting from our government is to see into that their lives change for the bad to good, or from good to better, or from better to the best. And that is what our president is trying to do. To change the lives of our people is the top priority of the president.
Very excellent.
Yes.
Let's talk about the UN General Assembly. Why do people gather for that assembly?
The General Assembly.
Because some presidents have criticized that what people normally come there, they come for photo sessions. There's nothing serious. Like somebody like President Museveni, he totally refused to go, right?
Yes.
What do you tell the public? Why do people come to the General Assembly? What is so important about that?
The purpose of which the UN, the United Nations, first of all, we go back to why the United Nations even was formed. The United Nations was formed as a peace forum following the end of the Second World War. It was called the League of the Nations. The League of the Nations now became the United Nations. During the formation of the League of the Nations, most of the African countries were not members because they were under colonial rule. So the United Nations was formed in the absence of Africans. I think the few that attended the formation of the United Nations was Ethiopia and Liberia, based the history that they were not colonized. So most of the African countries were not partners at that time. So the purpose of which the United Nations was formed because of the mistakes where the First World War was fought with a lot of losses of lives, especially in the European countries. Secondly, most Africans were recruited to fight these wars as the soldiers of the colonial powers. Africans fought in these wars, but they were fighting under the flags of the colonial powers. Now, when this happened, in our time that we are seeing, and let me say why some leaders are criticizing the United Nations. The United Nations as an institution that was supposed to spearhead peace and justice for all, as it is defined in the UN Charter. The equal rights for everybody, every human being is created equal according to the definition of what human being is. We are supposed to be equal. And the leaders, our late statesman like Mugabe, if you see his speeches, he had been saying that we are supposed to be free. The United Nations, why it is criticized, because in this United Nations, something called the UN Security Council, which was in fact the organ that sees that there is peace in the world, has not been carried out with the justice. First of all, we have 5 members of the United Nations Security Council. These 5 members, there is no African. Regardless of our being a huge continent on this earth, we are not represented. Asia, it is only China that is represented. China is the only one there. But at least if it is, we talk of China as an Asian country, then Asia is there. But Africa, there is nothing there. But apart from this, this organ of the United Nations has been weaponized. Against many countries, including our own. This organ has been used to punish people. Sometimes countries are suffering under sanctions. And these sanctions, it is like a court where you are tried in your absentia, and then a judgment is passed down against you because you are not there to defend yourself. That is why Africans are saying this organ is not just. There is no justice there. If you want to deal with the issues of Africa, Africa must be there, must be represented. And the African Union took it up and say the African problems even need African solutions.
Yes. Excellent. While in New York, many presidents, they met the President of the United States, Joe Biden, but South Sudan's President, Salva Kiir did not. What happened? Why?
That is really because, like, when you go to the African Union, it is not that you are going to meet the Prime Minister of Ethiopia or the President of Ethiopia, who is always a ceremonial president. In US, of course, Biden is an executive president. It is not necessary that our president had to meet Joe Biden. The United States only happened to be a host country where the UN is
taking place.
The UN is
seated,
located, is seated.
Yes.
But when we go to the UN, we don't go there with the purpose of meeting the United States President.
Okay. What other sideline meetings did the delegation, apart from the President or the President himself?
Yes.
What other sideline meetings that were held?
We had a lot. His Excellency the President had a lot of UN, during the UN General Assembly. The first person the President met was the Secretary General himself, because that is his place. The UN is the person to be met is the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. So the day our President arrived, in the evening he met him, because that is the most important person whom the President has to meet as the owner of the building. So the meeting was went on well, and then after Guterres, followed by other heads of state and government. For example, when you go there, you need to target what do you want to achieve in this meeting. Our President met the three African heads of state and government. For example, the President of Ghana, the President of Mozambique, and the Prime Minister of Gabon. You know that Gabon there was a coup,
Yes.
but they delegated their Prime Minister to attend the UN General Assembly on behalf of their President. So why the President met these three people? Because these are the members of the UN Security Council. In the 10 rotational seats, we have 3. Africa is always having 3. These 3 are the people who are representing Africa in the UN Security Council. The President had to meet these 3. Why? Because South Sudan was put on sanctions for no reasons. So our President met these 3 individually and presented our case. Why South Sudan was sanctioned, and now that the sanctions that were put on South Sudan, including the arms embargo itself now is affecting even the way how to implement the peace itself. In one of the articles of this peace that was signed, the revitalized peace agreement, was the chapter 2, which was dealing with the security arrangements. So this security arrangements requires that the integrated forces
Needs to be armed.
have to be armed and then deployed. Now the arms embargo has affected this, and this effect now of this arms embargo has made us not to be able to deploy this component. 53,000 is a component of peace itself. So if we are not able to deploy this 53,000, the peace process itself is affected.
Yeah, that's right. How do you describe generally, sorry to cut you short, we are running out of time, but we are still having at least some time. How do you describe the visit to the UN General Assembly? Was it successful? Was it something very good for the country? How do you describe it?
In fact, the visit of the President, to me, it was very successful. Our President has not been to the UN for a number of years. He had been delegating his deputies.
Yeah.
But it is always very important when the head of state comes to the UN General Assembly. And as a Minister of Foreign Affairs, I would just recommend that our President has to attend these meetings in person. It is very important. Not that because his deputies are not delivering, no. But his presence has a different weight than his deputies.
Yes.
Because he can meet his equals. He can meet his equals.
Correct.
And he can discuss the interests of this country on that level.
That's
like what they did to meet with the 3 heads of state of the African members of the Peace and Security Council. He was even able to meet other world leaders like Slovenia, which is coming in also as a member of the UN Security Council, and even to greet the outgoing member, which was Slovenia, Albania, which was going out. So these meetings were very important for us as a country. So I, as a Minister of Foreign Affairs, I should recommend really that our President attends these forums, because this is where he meets his equals.
That's very excellent.
Very important.
Yeah. As we go for a break, when we come back, we'll talk about the regional blocs like IGAD, like the African Union, how are they going to support not the implementation, but the coming general elections in 2024?
Thank you.
Then maybe plus some issues, just minor issues about the missions, issues to do with salaries. How are you going to handle them?
Thank you.
Viewer, we are going for a short break. Please don't go away because more are still coming. Hello viewers, welcome back from that short break. We are still discussing about the current national, regional and international affairs with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. James Pitia Morganl. Thank you for being with us and welcome again. Welcome back from that short break, Honorable. As we are talking about the current situation in the nation, the regional issues and also international issues. Let us talk briefly before we go to the regional bloc. Let us talk about the missions abroad. There have been some issues. I think if we recall, the president was talking about the issues of payment of salaries to the missions abroad. That salaries have not been paid, and sometimes when the salaries are paid, there's a call. A message is sent to recall back that salary. Have you experienced this kind of thing? If you have experienced, who is doing this? Who is calling back the salary?
Really, thank you very much for that question. The message of the president was well taken. I am here almost now for 1.5 months. And that is one of the things that immediately after I was shown in, the president of course made that statement. And that statement, immediately when I came to the building here, I called my staff. And the secretary who was even with me during that time. Yes, he was with me. We called the directors. We sat here in this office. And sometimes the situation in the ministry would go more than that, because we were having financial crisis in the country. Following our crisis from 2013, 2016, we have financial problems, we have economic problems in the country, we have sanctions that have not allowed even investors to come in. So the country has got these problems. And outside there, as one of the diplomats who have been outside there, yes, there have been a delay of salaries. And the delay of salaries, most of the reasons why there have been delay of salaries is mainly because of this, the country is undergoing this crisis, the financial issues and the economic problems the whole country is facing, and not only South Sudan. I think the whole world is affected with this issue of economic meltdown, coupled by the impact of the COVID-19. So the whole world is suffering. I told my staff here that you have heard the message from our president, and if there was nothing, if there was something like that, we will not tolerate that thing again to happen. We know that the country, we are going through hardship, but let us not add another hardship on the top of another hardship. Let us focus on the one hardship that is affecting the country and affecting the whole world, which is economic problems. But let nobody add another thing on the top of it. And I think up to now, we are working together with my team here in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the directives of the President will be followed to the letter. And find out if it was something like that. Of course, we will not tolerate. The ministry, the staff have assured me that, Minister, we will work together. We will make sure that something like that should not happen. Because this is not the policy of the ministry, that such things should be allowed to happen. And we will work together with you to make sure that we come out. You know, when you are given leadership in the crisis like this, it is good. Because when you emerge out from this hardship successfully, that proves that you are really a capable person.
Awesome.
And I like to work through hardship. Hardship makes leaders. And the leadership which is tested through hardship is a leadership that can stand with the situation of any time. And I'm not afraid of it. I will work with my team. What I need from this ministry is a teamwork. A teamwork that there is no grouping here. I told them that there will be no grouping again in this ministry. We stand together as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, whether in the headquarters and our missions abroad. We are not politicians in the first place. We are diplomats. We don't have constituencies. Our constituency is in South Sudan. This is our constituency. We don't see any tribe here. Our tribe is in South Sudan. So let us work together. Let us implement the foreign policy of our country, and the leader of that foreign policy itself is our president himself. We follow his directives. We listen to what he directed us to do, and here in the ministry, we stand together. That way we will succeed.
I understand there are some challenges that there are some ambassadors that were maybe accredited to some of the missions since maybe more than 10 years ago, and they have maybe if they are recalled back, they refuse to come back to the headquarters, or if they are rotated, they refuse to move. Is that true?
That is not really true also, because you see, the heads of missions, the ambassadors who are accredited as a head of missions, are under the prerogative of the president. The president can extend the ambassador based on the analysis of the president. If the president knows that that ambassador is doing a good job there, instead of sending a new ambassador who will take time to adapt to the situation, president has that prerogative. Yes, president has that prerogative to extend him. But the rest of the diplomats, apart from the head of mission, the rest of the diplomats is a prerogative of their minister. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, with the Undersecretary of the ministry, can decide to recall anybody, whether deputy head of mission or any diplomat can be recalled. The Minister of Foreign Affairs can direct the Undersecretary that that diplomat can be extended or can be recalled. That is that. But the President has that prerogative of the heads of missions. Being outside for a long time is not only South Sudan. There are ambassadors in other countries. They don't even go to the headquarters. From mission to mission to mission to mission. And those are the top performers. The president will look at it that no, this ambassador, the best thing he can do for the country is to be in those places. There are also hotspots.
So it is not a challenge. It is just based on merits.
Yes.
Someone's tenure is extended.
Yes.
But it's not based on what the public is saying, that some ambassadors refuse deliberately to move because that place is better than where they want to be transferred. No. Okay.
Yes.
Now let's talk about the regional bodies like the IGAD the African Union, and maybe including the United Nations. What is their role in regards to the coming general elections in 2024?
Very good. First of all, before I came here, before the president appointed me, I was the chairperson of the African Union Subcommittee of Human Rights, Governance and Democracy, including elections in Africa. African Union has been following the situation in South Sudan very closely until, if you remember, there's something called the C5. The C5 members include South Africa, Nigeria, Algeria, Rwanda, and Chad. These 5 countries were appointed by African Union to oversee the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement in South Sudan. So this is C5 members are all the time in consultation with IGAD, and even sometimes they make field trips to South Sudan to see how the peace agreement has been going. In the African Union, where I was the chairperson of that subcommittee, that subcommittee remained the subcommittee of South Sudan for 2 years. Even when I'm now here, the next ambassador who will replace me will continue to sit on that subcommittee until the 2 years elapses. Then it will go to another country or to Algeria, because Algeria now is the was deputy to me.
Okay.
The African Union is aware that after the end of revitalized peace agreement, the lifespan, which ended, and then the parties agreed to come up with a roadmap in order to accomplish other articles that were not accomplished during the revitalized process and put into the roadmap. The African Union is monitoring, and through their field missions to South Sudan, there were reports that South Sudan now is fit to go for elections. In our calendar, when I was in African Union, South Sudan was flagged as a country to go to elections in 2024. Another country to go for elections in that flag was Zimbabwe. Another one, I think Zimbabwe is already done. Another country in that was Gambia. So South Sudan is within that green zone of elections. In the continent. When I was there was a time I was delegated to come here to bring a team of trainers. I train youth here as a representative of the African Union mission to South Sudan to prepare our youth for the elections coming at the end of the year 2024. So African Union as a continental body is already aware that South Sudan is going for elections in the year 2024 towards the end of the year. The year 2025, South Sudan is expected to swear in an elected government of the people of South Sudan, for the people and by the people. Yes. On IGAD of course is now here on the ground. Whether they call him RT Jemek, I think that is part of IGAD. IGAD, one thing today I want to say about IGAD is that there was a special envoy who was delegated to work in South Sudan and to report about the progress of the peace implementation in South Sudan. This special envoy, instead of staying in Juba, I think this is not a criticism to him, but I have to say this. I hope he will be watching this interview. Instead of staying in Juba, set up his office in Juba, because this office is funded to make sure that he oversees the implementation process. This special envoy decided to sit in Addis Ababa with a very big office and monitor the situation in Addis Ababa instead of monitoring the situation here on the ground. That is a mistake. because the South Sudanese also need to benefit from this process.
Yes.
That office, if it is set here, that office should employ our youth. The South Sudanese youth should be working in that office because the office is funded for the purpose of South Sudan. And the office cannot sit outside South Sudan during this implementation period. The special envoy depends on reports from the UN agencies and whatever other agencies are here on the ground. That is a mistake. The UN agencies give the information according to their interests. I mentioned about the interest before. Interest is the interest of a person, but this is people. These are people. Nobody should put his or her interest on the people suffering. I still on this interview want to say here that the special envoy appointed by IGAD Council of Ministers for South Sudan implementation of this process should be sitting here in Juba.
Who should tell him that?
The Council of Ministers will meet and I will raise it because in that Council of Ministers I will be sitting there this time.
Okay.
If it is a call, I will be there and I will tell you that you are mandated to sit in Juba and not depending on the reports. You have to see things. And African Union and IGAD are not on the par when it comes to the situation in South Sudan. Always you say that RTGMEC gives a different version, and then sometimes they look like elections in South Sudan, the time is not yet. South Sudan cannot live on transitional. This is a country that has been liberated. The liberation process is finished. If it was not because of this crisis of 2013 or 2016, these coming elections will be the third elections that we were going to hold in this country.
Correct.
This country cannot live on transitional governments. This country needs elected government by the people. Like our president said, the liberation process is over. I myself, the president said, I myself am committed that the articles of the agreement are completed so that our people can have the right to elect their leaders.
Yes. Honorable, there are different views on the ground in regards to elections. Some political parties are saying some key provisions in the agreement have not been implemented and they will not be part of the elections. Others are saying that they will go for elections. So there are different versions. What is the response of the diplomatic community in regards to this kind of diverse opinions?
During my short period of being a Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have met with a number of ambassadors and other organs, international organizations. Take for example, the head of the UNIMIS in this country. I met with him and he says this is what he was hearing, but he also agrees with me that elections should take place because we have time. Those people reacted as if the election is going to take place tomorrow. It is not like that. We have time. Whatever is not accomplished is going to be accomplished. This is the year 2023. The elections in South Sudan will take place at the end of the year 2024. So let nobody make a mistake about it that there will be no elections. There will be elections. What was not accomplished is just things like the political parties act, which gives the political parties to register. And as soon as this act, I think, is almost going to be passed, we were in 2023. They will register. They will register, but the year has been declared that the year 2024 will be the year of elections. Up to now, no any political party that has registered itself or intends to register has never been prevented from conducting its political activities. As a government, what we are saying is that the politicians are free to sell their agendas to the people, but not to incite violence. Because violence always are very easy to be ignited during the election year. And that is what the government is always saying. You are free to sell your manifesto to the people or your agenda to the people. But let you do it in the right way. Don't go to a certain community and then you ignite crisis. We have never prevented anybody. We have seen SPLM-IO conducting rallies like in Eastern Equatoria, like in Western Equatoria. There was a certain statement which was saying, if the elections are going to be free and fair, we are going to win that election. That was a statement made by one of the parties. That is good. Elections is going to be free, fair, transparent, credible, and acceptable.
Excellent.
Yes.
As we conclude,
yes.
Is there something that I've missed to ask you that you would want to say to the public?
Well, we have time. I am here home. You as a journalist, you will hear more things. When you hear anything that you want the public to know, take a note about it, collect as much as you can, and I will be able to answer it. But for now, I want to assure our people, the citizens of this country, that the country is moving in the right direction. Our president is doing all the best he could do for the welfare of this nation, the nation that he and his colleagues liberated, and is doing the best that he could do to make sure that the people of South Sudan will be happy after, especially when they will be able to elect their government, to elect their leaders. I myself, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have told some of my colleagues or some of the ambassadors from other countries who always want to challenge us in other things, that elections cannot take place because of A, B, C, D. I told them the elections is not taking place tomorrow. We have time. Number two, when you need an accountable government, that accountable government must be elected by the people, so that that government will become accountable to the people that elected it. But if you expect that South Sudan should be on transitional, South Sudan should be transitional throughout, we are not going anywhere. The country has already been liberated, and the peace that was a little bit disturbed, that peace also has come back. The country now is peaceful. So we don't need transitional things, according to what our president said. Transitional governments have come to an end, and that will end by the year 2024. And I want to assure the people of this country that the coming government that will be sworn in the year 2025, that government will be your government, that you will be the one to elect it. And that is what the war that the people of this country, including our President General Salva Kiir, have been fighting for, is what that democracy, this country must live in. It is a multi-party system that is adapted according to the manifesto. It will live in peace among itself as a country which has got diversity of tribes. We will live in peace among ourselves, and that will reflect our foreign policy that people are asking always. What is the foreign policy of South Sudan? I am sending this message back to the people of South Sudan. Our foreign policy is that you people live in peace, so that the Minister of Foreign Affairs will sell that beauty of you being peaceful people of this nation to the others, so that they will be attracted by your love among yourself and living in peace among yourself in the diversity that has been created by the Almighty, that South Sudan must have, some people say we are 64 tribes. So this is 64 tribes must really show that diversity, that we are 64 tribes, but look outside the world, look at the way how we are living. We are South Sudanese, but we love ourselves. That I send it back to the people, that I'm waiting to sell that diversity to the outside world, so that your diversity will attract outsiders, and those outsiders will come and invest in this country.
Honorable Dr. James Pitia Morganl, thank you for talking to SSBC.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Viewer, we have come to the end of this program. We have been at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation discussing the current national and regional, including international affairs, with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. James Pitia Morganl. Thank you for being with us, and see you again next week. Until then, I've been your host, Duko Wilson, and bye-bye for now.